My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Well done, Anna. Very convincing. If you can put your ideas into practice, you'll save the company. Let's remind ourselves of the words you used to create the European marketing strategy.
We've got to compete on price. We need to price the rifles out of the market. We need to corner the market. We need to build good relationships with our customers.
Well, things seem to be going well for Anna. Or are they?
Anna! That man from France has called again and left a message. He's not happy this time. Something about us trying to rip them off.
What? Rip them off?
It means overcharging them or giving them poor quality goods.
That's not fair. I'm going to have to sort this out.
That's it, Anna. Go and build a good relationship with your customer. Bye for now.
LearningEnglish.com.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Catherine.
And I'm Neil. Do you know, Catherine, someone actually talked to me on the underground this morning.
No, really?
Yeah.
Wow. I should perhaps point out that talking to someone you don't know on the tube is quite unusual behaviour in London. So, Neil, what did they say?
Well, they said what a lovely day it was. Great to see the sun shining in London. Something along those lines. But it was actually nice to chat instead of sitting there with a frown on my face, fiddling with my phone.
Which is what you probably always do to pass the time on public transport, Neil?
Yes, it is. Me and thousands of others. But it got me thinking. If it makes me feel better to talk to people on the way to work, why don't I and other commuters in the city do it more often?
Well, that's a good question, Neil, and maybe we'll find some answers in the show. Because today we're talking about why cities make us so rude. And I have a question for you. When we have a positive interaction with somebody, our body releases a chemical. But what's the name of this chemical? Is it A, melatonin, B, oxytocin, or C, thyroxine?
I don't know. But I'm going to say A, melatonin.
Well, we'll see if you're right or not later on in the show. But did you know, Neil, that an organisation called Talk to Me London has created these tube chat badges that you can wear to show that you're happy to talk to a stranger? Maybe you should get one.
Yeah, maybe I should. But the thing is, people in big cities are often scared to start a conversation with a stranger because, well, you don't know what might happen.
That's true. Now let's listen to Dr. Elle Bogue, a social psychologist at Birmingham City University here in the UK. She agrees that people can view cities as threatening places.
When we step off the metro or onto a crowded city street, our brain becomes hypervigilant to the perception of threats around us. We're just one small person in a very large set of other people, in a large body of people. This then leads to behaviours that are insular and defensive. We're persistently looking for potential threats around us, and this then makes us not give eye contact. This will reduce the likelihood that anybody will say hello. It's a protective mechanism by which we can survive our journey to whence we're going, which makes us all seem really, really rude to one another.
Dr. Elle Bogue there. And hypervigilance means being extremely watchful of what's going on around you. People can behave unpredictably, and like Dr. Bogue says, you're just one person in a crowd of others, and you just don't know who might be dangerous.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And the fact we are constantly on the lookout for potential threats, well, it affects our behaviour.
That's right. And as a protective mechanism, we avoid speaking to or making eye contact with other people. So we become insular, which means inward-looking.
Oh, it sounds awful. But actually, I know people who move to London in order to be anonymous, to blend in with the crowd and not have to talk to people.
Well, if you grow up in a small town, it can feel claustrophobic, which means not having enough space to feel comfortable. You know, you can't do anything without the whole community knowing about it. You might have nosy neighbours.
And a nosy person shows too much interest in other people's business.
Now, it's good to point out that people living in cities have stuff to do, and it's not necessarily rudeness that stops people from chatting. It's about efficiency, getting to work on time, getting things done. Let's hear from Thomas Farley, writer and broadcaster, and expert on manners, for more on this.
The cost of living in cities is higher, the success quotient is higher. It's a place where you hustle to survive. And if you are not hustling, and I mean that literally and figuratively, you are not able to survive and thrive. So we often don't have much time for chit-chat. I think we just all need to be mindful that it's not a deliberate disregard or somebody trying to be rude on purpose.
My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best. Flick to link, link to flick.
Not sure. That's how he was hearing me. Not sure. Then I asked him, is that weird? He's like, yeah, it's really weird, man. But as soon as he said that, his whole demeanor changed. It's as if he's putting all the doubt on the floor. And he said, yeah, you can do this. And just don't get too weird. So for the next hour, I was the Starbucks greeter. I say hi to every customer that walked in and give them holiday cheers. By the way, I don't know what your career trajectory is. Don't be a greeter. It was really boring. But then I found I could do this because I mentioned, is that weird? I mentioned a doubt that he was having. And because I mentioned, is that weird? That means I wasn't weird. That means I was actually thinking just like him, seeing this as a weird thing. And again, I learned that if I mention some doubt people might have before I ask the question, I gain their trust. People will more likely to say yes to me. And then I learned I could fulfill my life dream by asking. You know, I came from 4 generations of teachers. And my grandma has always told me, hey, Jia, you can do anything you want, but it'd be great if you become a teacher. But I want to be an entrepreneur, so I didn't. But it has always been my dream to actually teach something. So I said, what if I just ask and teach a college class? So I lived in Austin at the time, so I went to University of Texas in Austin, knocked on professors' doors and said, can I teach your class? I didn't get anywhere the first couple times. But because I didn't run, I kept doing it. And on the 3rd try, the professor was very impressed. It's like, no one has done this before. And I came in prepared with the PowerPoints and my lesson. It's like, wow, I can use this. Well, when you come back in 2 months, I'll fit you in my curriculum. And 2 months later, I was teaching a class. This is me. You probably can't see this is a bad picture. Sometimes you get rejected by lighting, But when I finished teaching that class, I walked out crying because I thought I could just fulfill my life dream just by simply asking. I used to think I have to accomplish all these things, have to be a great entrepreneur or get a PhD to teach. But no, I just asked and I could teach. And in that picture, which you can't see, I quoted Martin Luther King Jr. Why? Because in my research, I found the people who really changed the world, who changed the way we live and the way we think, are the people who were met with initial and often violent rejections. People like Martin Luther King Jr., like Muhammad Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, or even Jesus Christ. These people did not let rejection define them. They let their own reaction after rejection define themselves. And they embrace rejection. And we don't have to be those people to learn about rejection. And in my case, rejection was my curse, was my boogeyman. It has bothered me my whole life because I was running away from it. Then I started embracing it. I turned that into the biggest gift in my life. I started teaching people how to turn rejections into opportunities. I used my blog, I used my talk, I used the book I just published, and I'm even building technology to help people overcome their fear of rejection. when you get rejected in life, when you are facing the next obstacle or next failure, consider the possibilities. Don't run. If you just embrace them, they might become your gifts as well. Thank you.
Our lives depend on a world we can't see. Think about your week so far. Have you watched TV, used GPS, checked the weather, or even ate a meal? These many things that enable our daily lives rely either directly or indirectly on satellites. And while we often take for granted the services that satellites provide us, the satellites themselves deserve our attention as they are leaving a lasting mark on the space they occupy. People around the world rely on satellite infrastructure every day for information, entertainment, and to communicate. There's agricultural and environmental monitoring, internet connectivity, navigation. Satellites even play a role in the operation of our financial and energy markets. But these satellites that we rely on day in and day out have a finite life. They might run out of propellant, they could malfunction, or they may just naturally reach the end of their mission life. At this point, these satellites effectively become space junk, cluttering the orbital environment. So imagine you're driving down the highway on a beautiful sunny day out running errands. You've got your music cranked, your windows rolled down with the cool breeze blowing through your hair. Feels nice, right? Everything is going smoothly until suddenly your car stutters and stalls right in the middle of the highway. So now you have no choice but to abandon your car where it is on the highway. Maybe you were lucky enough to be able to move it out of the way and into a shoulder lane so that it's out of the way of other traffic. A couple of hours ago, your car was a useful machine that you relied on in your everyday life. Now, it's a useless hunk of metal taking up space in a valuable transportation network. And imagine international roadways all cluttered with broken down vehicles that are just getting in the way of other traffic. And imagine the debris that would be strewn everywhere if a collision actually happened. Thousands of smaller pieces of debris becoming new obstacles. This is the paradigm of the satellite industry. Satellites that are no longer working are often left to deorbit over many, many years, or only moved out of the way as a temporary solution. And there are no international laws in space to enforce us to clean up after ourselves. So the world's first satellite, Sputnik 1, was launched in 1957. And in that year, there were only a total of 3 launch attempts. Decades later, and dozens of countries from all around the world have launched thousands of more satellites into orbit. And the frequency of launches is only going to increase in the future, especially if you can...
Flink to link, link to flick. My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Well done, Anna. Very convincing. If you can put your ideas into practice, you'll save the company. Let's remind ourselves of the words you used to create the European